Deep in a time long past, by the vast and churning sea, there lived a fisherman and his wife. Their home was a humble, rickety hovel, barely more than a shack, and the salty air that filled it was a constant, damp reminder of their simple life. Every single day, without fail, the fisherman would rise with the sun, take his hook and line, and make his way to the shore. He would cast his line into the water and wait, his gaze fixed on the endless blue, hoping for a catch to feed them. He would sit for hours patiently, a silent figure against the backdrop of the waves. One particular day felt just like any other. The fisherman sat on his usual rock, his rod held steady, his eyes scanning the clear water below. The sun warmed his back, and the gulls cried overhead. Suddenly, he felt a tremendous tug on his line. It wasn't the usual nibble. This was something powerful, something that pulled with surprising force. He struggled, his muscles straining, as he carefully reeled in his catch. Finally, with a great heave, he pulled it from the water. It wasn't just any fish. It was a huge, magnificent flounder, its scales shimmering in the sunlight. As he prepared to unhook his prize, a voice clear and human startled him. "Fisherman, please listen to me," it said. The fisherman looked around, confused, then stared in disbelief at the flounder gasping on the shore. It was the fish that was speaking. "Let me go," the flounder pleaded. "I'm not a real fish. I'm an enchanted prince trapped in this form. What good will I be to you if you take me home? I won't taste good at all. Please put me back into the water and let me swim away." The fisherman was flabbergasted. He had never in his life heard a fish speak. He thought for a moment. "Well," he said, his voice a little shaky, "there's no need for so many words. If you can talk, you're clearly no ordinary fish. I'd much rather let you go." And with that, he gently unhooked the prince and slid him back into the clear, cool sea. The flounder gave a flick of its tail and disappeared into the depths, leaving behind only a faint, curious streak of red in the water. The fisherman, feeling he'd done the right thing, packed up his gear and headed home to his wife in their little hovel. When he walked through the door, his wife looked up from her mending. "Well, husband," she asked, her tone sharp, "did you catch anything today?" The fisherman shook his head. "No," he said, "not exactly. I did catch a massive flounder, but he told me he was an enchanted prince, so I let him go again." His wife's eyes widened, first in disbelief, and then in anger. "You did what?" she cried. "You caught an enchanted prince, and you just let him go. Did you not wish for anything?" The fisherman looked puzzled. "Wish for anything? No, what on earth should I have wished for? Oh, you foolish man," she screeched, throwing her hands up in the air. "Look at this place. It's dreadful, it's cramped, it smells of fish and damp. You could have at least wished for a proper little cottage. Go back this instant. Go back to the sea and call for him. Tell him we want a little cottage. I'm certain he'll give it to us. Now go and be quick about it." The fisherman sighed. He didn't want to go back. He felt it was wrong to ask for a favor after being merciful, but his wife was relentless, her nagging echoing in the tiny hovel until he couldn't stand it anymore. So, reluctantly, he turned and trudged back to the seashore. When he arrived, he noticed something strange. The sea was no longer clear and blue. It had turned a murky green and yellow, and the waves seemed more restless than before. If man you be, or flounder, flounder, in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not. If man you be, or flounder, flounder, in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not. Almost immediately, the great flounder came swimming up to the surface. Now then, the fish prince asked, his voice calm, "What does she want?" The fisherman wrung his hands nervously. "Oh," he said, "my wife ... she's not happy. She says I should have made a wish when I caught you. She doesn't want to live in our hovel anymore. She wants a nice little cottage." The flounder simply looked at him. "Go home," he said. "She has it already." And with a flick, he disappeared back into the murky depths. The fisherman turned and walked home, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and dread. But as he neared the spot where his hovel once stood, he stopped in his tracks. In its place was a charming little cottage with a proper roof, sturdy walls, and glass in the windows. His wife was sitting on a brand new wooden bench out front, a wide smile on her face. When she saw him, she jumped up and took him by the hand. come in," she said excitedly. "Just look. Isn't this a great improvement?" He followed her inside. There was a cozy living area, a beautiful little bedroom, a clean kitchen, and a pantry stocked with food. Everything was furnished with brand new pots and pans made of iron and brass hanging neatly on the walls. She led him out the back door. There was a small yard where chickens and ducks clucked and quacked contentedly. Beyond that was a little garden bursting with green vegetables and fruit trees. "Look," his wife beamed, gesturing at their new life. "Isn't it wonderful?" The fisherman nodded, still in a state of shock. "Yes," he agreed, "it is. If this can only last, we shall be very well contented." His wife smiled. "Yes," he agreed, "it is. If this can only last, we shall be very well contented." His wife smiled. That night, after a hearty meal, they went to sleep in a real bed for the first time in years. For a week, maybe 2, things were perfect. They enjoyed the cottage, the garden, and the comfort it brought. The fisherman thought that maybe, just maybe, his wife was finally happy, but he was wrong. One evening, she turned to him with a familiar frown. "Husband," she began, "this cottage, it's really too small. The yard and the garden are tiny. We're practically on top of each other." The fisherman felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. "What are you saying?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "I think," she said, her voice growing firm, "that the flounder can do better. A cottage is fine, but I would much prefer to live in a grand stone castle. A cottage is fine, but I would much prefer to live in a grand stone castle. Go find your flounder and tell him to send us a castle, the fisherman protested. A castle, wife? That's too much to ask. The flounder was generous to give us this cottage. He will be angry if we ask for more, but his wife wouldn't hear of it. Nonsense, she declared. He's an enchanted prince. A castle is nothing to him. Go now and don't come back until we have one. Her demands grew louder and more insistent until the fisherman, weary and defeated, knew he had no choice. With a heavy heart, he once again made the journey back to the sea, wondering what would happen next. Thank you so much for joining me for this part of the story. If you're enjoying this classic tale, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. We'll find out what happens when the fisherman calls the flounder again, and see just how far his wife's ambition will take them. See you in the next video. The fisherman and his wife moved into the beautiful little cottage, complete with a cozy bedroom, a kitchen, and even a little yard with chickens and ducks. Everything was perfect. "Isn't this nice?" said the wife. "Yes," the fisherman replied. "If this can only last, we'll be very happy." They settled in, and for a week or two, everything was wonderful. But then the wife started to get restless. "Husband," she said one day, "this cottage is just too small. The yard, the garden, they're tiny. I think you should go back to that flounder and have him get us a larger house. I want to live in a big stone castle." The fisherman was taken aback. "My dear wife," he said, "the cottage is perfectly fine. What on earth do we need a castle for?" "We just do," she insisted. "Go on. The flounder can easily give us one." The fisherman really didn't want to go. He felt it was wrong to ask for more after the flounder had already been so kind. He might be angry, he worried, but his wife wouldn't hear of it. "Go along. He can do it. So just do as I say." With a heavy heart, the fisherman made his way back to the sea. This time, the water wasn't clear and green. It was a murky mix of purple, dark blue, and grey. He stood on the shore and called out his rhyme, oh man, if man you be, or flounder, flounder in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not." The flounder appeared. "Well, what does she want now?" he asked. The fisherman, half scared, mumbled, "She ... She wants to live in a large stone castle." "Go home," the flounder said. "She's already standing in front of it." So the fisherman headed back. And sure enough, where their little cottage had been, now stood a massive stone castle. His wife was on the steps, waiting for him. "Let's go inside," she said, taking his hand. The castle was incredible. The great hall had a marble floor, and servants were everywhere. They walked through grand doorways, down hallways lined with tapestries. The rooms were filled with golden chairs and tables, and sparkling crystal chandeliers hung from every ceiling. There was even a huge stable yard with fine horses and carriages, and a magnificent garden that stretched for half a mile, filled with beautiful flowers, fruit trees, and even deer. "There," the wife said, beaming, "isn't this beautiful?" "Oh yes," the fisherman agreed. "If this will only last, we can live here and be very content." "We'll see about that," she said, and they went to bed. The very next morning, the wife woke up at dawn. She looked out the window at the vast, beautiful country spread out before her. She poked her husband in the ribs. "Husband, get up. Look out the window. Just imagine, if we were king over all this land. Go to your fish and tell him we want to be king." The fisherman couldn't believe it. "Wife, why would we want to be kings? I have no desire to be a king." "Well," she retorted, "if you don't want to be king, I do, and I will be." "But why?" he pleaded. "I can't ask him for something like that." "Why not?" she demanded. "You must go right now. I must be king." So the poor man went, completely bewildered that his wife now wanted to be a king. "This isn't right," he thought to himself. "This is not right at all." He didn't want to go, but he went anyway. When he reached the sea this time, the water was a dark, churning grey. It surged onto the shore and had a foul smell. He stood there and called out his rhyme once more. "Oh man, oh man. If man you be or flounder, flounder in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got. For she wants what I do not." "Well, what now?" boomed the flounder. "Oh dear," the man whispered. "She wants to be king." "Go home," said the fish. "She already is." The man turned and walked back. As he approached the castle, he saw it had grown even larger, with huge towers and splendid gates. A herald stood at the door, and soldiers with drums and trumpets lined the entrance. Inside, everything was marble and gold. He walked through massive doors into the great throne room, and there, sitting on a throne of solid gold and diamonds, was his wife. She wore a giant golden crown and held a scepter made of pure gold and jewels. On either side of her stood a row of pages. The fisherman walked up to her. "Well, wife," he said, "so now you are king." "Yes," she declared, "now I am king." He just stood there and looked at her for a long time. Finally, he said, "This is wonderful for you, being king. Now, there's surely nothing more to wish for." But his wife looked restless. "Oh, husband, I'm already tired of this. But go to your fish and tell him that now I am king, I must be emperor." "Wife," the man sighed, "why do you want to be emperor? This story is far from over, and her ambition only grows from here. What do you think happens when you let greed take over? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this incredible tale. Thanks for watching. He stood there and just stared at her for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "Well, wife," he said, "this is wonderful, isn't it? You're king. Now there's nothing more to wish for." But his wife looked restless. "Oh, husband," she snapped, "I'm already tired of this. Go to your fish. Tell him that since I am king, I must now become emperor." The man couldn't believe his ears. "Now, wife," he pleaded, "why on earth would you want to be emperor?" "Husband," she declared, her voice hard as steel, "go and tell the fish I want to be emperor." "Oh dear," he sighed. "He can't do that. I can't ask him for such a thing. There's only one emperor at a time. The fish can't possibly make you an emperor. He just can't." She glared at him. "Now, look here," she commanded. "I am king, and you are only my husband. So, will you go at once? Go on. If he was able to make me king, he is able to make me emperor. I will be emperor, and I must be emperor. So go." He had no choice but to obey. As he walked, he felt a deep unease. "This isn't right," he thought to himself. "Wanting to be emperor is going way too far. The flounder will surely start to get tired of this." When he arrived at the sea, the water was no longer dark green, but completely black and thick. Gloomy foam bubbled on the surface, and a harsh wind began to blow. The man was terrified, but he stood at the shore and called out his familiar rhyme. "Oh man, if man you be, or flounder, flounder in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not." The fish swam up. "What is it now?" it asked, its voice sounding weary. "Oh dear," said the man, his voice trembling. "My wife. She wants to be emperor." The fish simply replied, "Go home. She is emperor already." So the man went home. When he arrived, the castle was even grander, adorned with polished marble and beautiful alabaster statues. The gates were made of solid gold. Troops were marching in formation before the door, with trumpets blaring and drums and cymbals crashing. When he went inside, he saw barons, earls, and dukes all standing around like servants, waiting to be called. The doors themselves were made of bright gold. And there, sitting on a magnificent throne, was his wife. The throne was carved from a single piece of solid gold and seemed to be at least 2 miles high. On her head, she wore a huge golden crown, nearly 3 yards tall, encrusted with brilliant diamonds and rubies. In one hand, she held a scepter, and in the other, a golden globe representing the world. On either side of her, pages were lined up in 2 perfect rows, arranged by size. From an enormous giant who was 2 miles tall, down to the tiniest dwarf, no bigger than his little finger. In front of her stood crowds of earls and dukes. The man walked slowly up to her and said, "Well, wife, so now you are emperor." "Yes," she said, looking down at him. "Now I am emperor." He went and sat down, just taking it all in, staring at her in awe and disbelief. After a while, he spoke again. "Well now, wife, there is nothing left to be awe. You're emperor now. This must be the end of it." She scoffed. "What are you talking about, husband?" she demanded. "I am emperor, and next I will be pope. So go and tell the fish." "Oh dear me," the man cried out. "What won't you wish for? You can't become pope. There's only one pope in all of Christendom." The fish can't possibly do it. Husband, she said dismissively, no more words. I must and will be Pope, so go along to the fish. Now, wife, the man begged, how can I ask him for such a thing? It's too much. It's asking far too much. Besides, he couldn't do it. What nonsense. She snapped back, if he could make me emperor, he can make me pope. Go and ask him. I am emperor, and you are only my husband, so you must go. He went, feeling a terror he had never known before. He shivered and shook, and his knees trembled. As he walked, a great wind rose up, and dark clouds raced across the sky. The sea began to churn and rise into mountains of water, tossing ships about like toys. The sky in the middle was a strange, eerie blue, but on all sides it was dark and red, like the heart of a terrible storm. He felt completely hopeless, but he stood trembling at the water's edge and called out his rhyme once more. O man, if man you be, or flounder, flounder in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not. Well, what now? Asked the fish, its voice booming over the storm. Oh dear, the man wailed. She wants to be Pope. Go home with you, the fish commanded. She is Pope already. So he went home. But instead of a castle, he found himself standing before a great church, surrounded by palaces. He had to push his way through a massive crowd of people just to get near it. When he finally got inside, the entire place was illuminated by thousands and thousands of candles. And there was his wife, clothed in a golden garment, sitting on an even higher throne. She wore not one, but 3 golden crowns, one stacked upon the other, in the greatest priestly splendor. On both sides of her stood 2 rows of lights of all sizes, from ones as tall as the longest tower down to the smallest little candle. And kneeling before her, kissing her foot, were all the emperors and kings of the world. The man just walked up, sat down, and stared at her. Well, wife, he said, his voice barely a whisper. So you are Pope. So the fisherman went home, and what did he find? Not his grand palace, but a massive church surrounded by even more palaces. A huge crowd was gathered, and he had to push his way through. When he finally got inside, the place was ablaze with thousands upon thousands of lights. And there, sitting on a towering throne, was his wife. She was draped in a magnificent golden garment, wearing 3 golden crowns, one on top of the other, looking for all the world like the highest priest. On either side of her were 2 rows of candles, ranging from the size of a giant tower down to the tiniest little rushlight, and kneeling before her, kissing her feet, were all the emperors and kings of the world. The fisherman just stood there and stared. Well, wife, he said, finally breaking the silence, so you are Pope now. Yes, she declared, now I am Pope. He kept gazing at her, feeling dizzy, as if he were staring directly into the sun. After a little while, he asked, well now, wife, what's left to be, now that you're Pope? She sat up stiff and straight, not saying a word. So he tried again. "Well, wife, I really hope you're content at last. You can't be anything more than the Pope." "We will see about that," she replied coldly. With that, they both went to bed, but the wife was as far from content as ever. She couldn't sleep a wink, her mind racing, trying to figure out what she should be next. The husband, on the other hand, was exhausted from his busy day and slept soundly. The wife just tossed and turned all night long from one side of the bed to the other, racking her brain. What could she be next? Nothing came to mind. Then, as she saw the first red streaks of dawn in the sky, she slid out of bed and sat by the window to watch the sun rise. As it climbed into the sky, a thought struck her. "Ah, I have it." She whispered to herself, "What if I could make the sun and the moon rise?" She turned back to her husband, poked him sharply in the ribs, and shouted, "Husband, wake up. Go to your fish and tell him I want power over the sun and moon." The man was so deeply asleep that the sudden poke sent him tumbling out of bed. He shook his head to clear it, opened his eyes, and said, "Oh, wife, what did you say?" "Husband," she repeated, her voice full of urgency. "If I can't have the power to make the sun and moon rise whenever I want, I will never have another moment of peace. Go to the fish and tell him so, oh wife." The poor man cried, falling to his knees before her. "The fish can't do that for you. He really can't. I mean, he could make you an emperor, and he could make you the Pope. Please, I'm begging you, just be content with that." But she had become a storm of impatience. She screamed at him, "I can't wait any longer. Go at once." So he scrambled to his feet and ran off, terrified of what she might do. As he ran towards the sea, a dreadful storm began to brew. The wind howled so fiercely he could barely stay on his feet. Houses and trees were being torn from the ground and thrown about. The mountains trembled, and huge rocks tumbled from the cliffs into the sea. The sky turned completely black, split by thunder and lightning. And the waves, they were like mountains themselves, crowned with white foam, crashing down with terrifying force. He stood at the shore and cried out, but the storm was so loud he couldn't even hear his own voice. Oh man, if man you be, or flounder, flounder in the sea, such a tiresome wife I've got, for she wants what I do not." Suddenly, the voice of the flounder cut through the roar of the storm. "Well, what now, oh dear?" the man wailed. "She wants to command the sun and the moon." The flounder simply said, "Go home. You will find her back in the old hovel." And so the fisherman went home. The palaces, the church, the guards, the gold, all of it was gone. And there in its place was their dirty little shack by the sea. And there they are, sitting in it to this very day.